Hello, everybody. I'm Russell Hill. I'm your host of WTF, and that is What the FixedOPS podcast. And today I'm joined by.
Hello, everybody. I'm Charity Dunning, co-host here at What the FixedOPS. And today we have Tim Hayden, the CEO at BrainTrust Partners with us today. Tim, welcome.
Charity, Russell, thanks for having me. It's great to be here. It is the holidays. I hope everybody's staying warm and looking ahead to family fun, gifting, all the things. Great to be here.
Yeah, great. Well, why don't you share with our audience a little bit about yourself and who you are?
Yeah, who are you?
Well, I'm Batman.
No, of course you are.
I would say, I say on LinkedIn that I'm a social anthropologist. I mean, I'm in the technology business, yes, but what I've been doing most of my career is trying to stay just a little bit ahead, not on the bleeding edge, but helping companies, whether I was working for an agency or I owned an agency, had a software company, worked for a software company, and now today at BrainTrust, helping companies understand really what it is to be future ready, right? Lots of people are talking about AI. Lots of people are talking about things like blockchain. They're talking about data centers. They're talking about everybody wants to talk about sales, of course. Everybody wants to talk about politics. Everybody, the world is very fluid, right? And it's always changing. It's whoever said it first, the only constant is change. We're at an accelerated pace of change that hasn't happened in history ever, except maybe the several million years that the Earth was formed.
Yeah.
But bottom line is, I think we're at a fascinating moment right now, and at BrainTrust, we help our clients navigate that by choosing the right technology, making the right decisions when it comes to artificial intelligence, and then strategically leveraging all of the above to move things forward. And hopefully we'll unpack that today a little bit.
That's great.
We definitely.
We definitely. Well, so I met Tim a little over a year ago, and it could have been before, but I doubt it, in a room that was established in Clubhouse called The Human Side of AI with Wendy Reeves. Phenomenal. And as a matter of fact, if I'm not mistaken, we're in December. It's 3 years that OpenAI ChatGPT came on the scene. And it's like everybody, particularly this last year, and to always remember there is a human side to AI. Tim is a regular on there. And I've learned so much from him. I can't even really comprehend it at the level that he does. But you know what? It's really important. Everybody should get plugged in and just learn a little bit every single day, even if it's only a few minutes listening to something or popping into that room or another room, et cetera, because this is coming and it's coming fast. And we're going to get into some stuff today, like CDP and AI and how all that comes into play. But then I also had the opportunity, and he really clarified something for me. About 2 months ago, I was in Austin and had lunch with him, and it was phenomenal. Great guy, as you can already tell, and he speaks at well, you'll see as we go on. So, Tim. Or Charity, ask. I know she really has done a great job assembling these questions. So I'm going to let her start off.
Thanks, Russell.
Yeah.
Well, we definitely are going to cover AI today, and I think you're a really good person to answer some of these questions that we have. And we've talked about AI a lot this year on the podcast, but we're an automotive podcast. So my first question to you would be, how does AI and automotive overlap?
Well, I mean, it has overlapped for the past decade already, right? In terms of the optimization of the top of the funnel, when we talk about retargeting, we talk about identifying customers who have the intent to search or buy a car. That has been a wonderful orchestration of if-then signals, right, that are coming. So it's a data story as much as it is an automation story. And today, the way that I think we're thinking about AI, a lot of people are thinking about it in terms of generative AI. They're thinking about it in terms of maybe ChatGPT or Anthropic's Claude. Obviously, where we are right now at the end of 2024, big news coming from Google with Gemini, right? Lots of big announcements coming from these companies. we're seeing the next phase of AI right now, and I think AI in automotive is going to be something that helps dealers not just focus totally on the sales side, but also, and probably one of the fabulous reasons we're here today talking about it, is the entire customer relationship. And the entire customer relationship is mostly defined by what happens after someone drives the product off the lot, right? It mostly starts there. I think Brian Benstock, who was one of our first clients at Paragon, he had said that to me early. He's like, the relationship doesn't start when somebody does a build and price on our site. It doesn't do it when they schedule a test drive. That's not when it starts. It starts after they've left the F&I process and the keys are theirs and they're on their own. It's our job to nurture them and take care of them and have a relationship with them from that point on. And FixedOPS is the major thread, right? Repair orders are the major thread.
Indeed.
Parts are the major thread to really build the value in that relationship. So AI is here because parts data, repair order data, aggregate VIN intelligence, right? To know that you've got 1,000 customers that drive that model, that year, that trim, who seem to be buying this sequence of these 3 different parts, or they have these 3 to 4 different RO SKUs.
Sure.
Guess what? We found another 500 customers that are almost just like them that haven't bought any of those things yet. How do we leverage AI? Because a human can't go in there and figure all that out. How do we leverage AI to identify who else we should be asking to, we should be approaching to come in for some type of FixedOPS transaction, but better than that, some type of incremental building of the relationship. I think that's the way I would say it more than anything else. It's not about just simply making videos and glossy images of vehicles for showrooming and digital showrooming. That's important. First impressions matter. But when we really think about it, it's about how do we fortify the relationship we have with our customers, because that's who keeps the lights on. That's who we have to have coming back again and again, more frequently than they do today.
Before, Charity, this might lead into your question. So data, it requires an enormous amount of data, and it's so siloed. There's the DMS, there's the CRM, there's outside call centers, there's a plethora of vendors that aren't sharing data. The messages that are going to the customer are mixed. They're not accurate. They're not timed. And it's like, okay, AI, I've seen a lot of, April Simmons, who she was just on not too long ago, and she'll be coming out. She was talking about, an ADD, another damn dashboard, right. And really it doesn't even communicate to the DMS, or possibly even potential libel suits because they opt out here, but they're getting information over here.
Correct.
And it's a cluster right now as we navigate the way through here. Do you have any thoughts on that? Or maybe that has to do with Charity's next question. Yeah. What percentage of companies are AI ready? And what does that mean? And what does that look like?
Well, statistically, and this is probably 3 or 4 sources I've seen numbers bandied about, but probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 60 to 80% of companies are not AI ready because of what you just described, Russell. And that is that they've invested in technology again and again, year over year, right? And another damn dashboard. And most car dealers are building their own little equations. I got to think most dealer principals and general sales managers have got a little piece of paper on their desk that just shows all the technology they're using. And next to it's a number, like the number of units they think they can sell because of that technology. The jam there is what you've already described, is that now they have data disparately or just scattered about, right? It's all over the place. You've been asking your team now to operate by bouncing between 3 to 5 different dashboards to make sense, to make decisions, to drive what's next, which of course is going to be sales, more profits, more frequent visits, right? These things, right? Return purchases. yeah, these are the kinds of things, or repeat purchases, I think is a better way to say that. But but bottom line is those kinds of things, I think, is where master data management, right? This is what customer data platforms promise to do, and a lot of them have done with marketing data, and mostly just marketing data. We got to think about that deeper. We got to think about the customer's value being the sum of all of their activity, both that which could be purchase related, but that which could be just informative in terms of how they filled out a survey, or how they entered a sweepstakes, or how they answered a questionnaire after they came in for a repair order. That's all very important directional data that needs to be cared for. It needs to be in one place, if not just in two places, right? Because I think the DMS vendors are doing what they can to make sure that they also have as much of that data as possible in the DMS for operational continuity.
Sure.
You need it. You need to have it somewhere else for analytics as well.
Mm-hmm.
So
it all kind of leads back to the DMS.
I think it's important right now that we think about things as the DMS being, one of the top 2 or 3 systems in the dealer. I mean, it always has been, but it needs to stay that way. And with that, if you're looking at CDPs, if you're looking at master data management, these are going to be more contemporary. They're going to be systems that were more recently created, so they're more efficient. They're better built for performance analysis. They're better built for correlation and causal relationship, which is the things that machine learning are able to help you understand about large data sets, right? And not just large data sets, but large data sets that came from 20 different origin sources, which is, I think, exactly what you're talking about there, Russell.
But Tim, the DMSs are horrible. And my experience, because I was in running stores for many, many years, and then the CRM data is either more accurate or not as accurate. Push pull, what's there, the records are all jacked up. Nobody really, so now you're talking CDP.
Yeah.
So explain that to us and all of you out there listening, because you're going to get some information which already. What is the difference between the three?
Well, CDPs originated outside the automotive industry as your ability to take, make a connection between all of your marketing systems. So you think of them as channels. You may have social, you may have email, you have CMS and website management. You've got mobile app management, mobile analytics. You've got content delivery networks and content delivery systems. And you've got, a digital media platform, a DMP, perhaps. Maybe a lot of the things I'm rattling off now, the agency manages for the dealer, because we're talking about dealers here. As they've had those systems, right, they have once again gone about managing different kinds of data in different systems. The CDP, when it comes to marketing, is pulling all that together. And what it's doing is it's saying, let's take media data and media signals and let's correlate it with customers, and just we can have a one-to-one look at what's working, what's not working, or answer the why question, or how that customer came to be or came to buy, right? I think there's that. The other side of it is, once you do have all of your customer information, and I would argue your VIN information in the CDP, and things are being correlated, right? You've got unified records for customers. So someone who identifies as Bob and Robert and Bobby and Bob 5000, Bob 5000 on Instagram. And
yeah, exactly.
But he's got that IP address. He's got an IP address. He's got a MAC address for an iPhone that he used 5 years ago that's in your systems, and he's got a MAC address for the MacBook and the iPhone that he's using today that's in your system. All of that data is going to confuse a lot of your legacy systems, and I'll nod with you in your comment about DMSs. DMSs were never built to deal with
they weren't.
this kind of world. So the CDP is there to help you with entity or identity resolution, object resolution, all the data signals coming from all these different places. Bring it all together and let's structure it. Let's build cohorts on people that look like this and drive that, and people who look like that and drive this. These are different audiences, as well as that which just helps us get an individual view of people so we can start to make sense of who we need to be focused on for outreach, or who we need to target, or
Indeed.
put an ad in front of, send an email to, call them up. Dare I say, salespeople should actually pick up the phone and call somebody.
No, it's unheard of, but yeah.
So that's what CDPs are about. It's about performance marketing and marketing automation. Absolutely. My big point is that I won't name names, but most of the CDPs that are native to the automotive industry only look at marketing data, and therefore they're not building the acute empathy view, the customer lifetime view that could be there if you combine variable operations with fixed operations in F&I, right? I mean, you bring all the data into one place and let machine learning do what it does, which is not AI.
No.
But machine learning is the thing that makes AI possible, right? It's the thing that gets data ready for it and helps you clean things up operationally to do hundreds of improvable things in your business before you even bring in AI. So it's where we are right now in the automotive industry. To be honest, this is probably an extension to my answer to Charity. Right? Is AI and automotive is barely started. It is.
Right.
We're in the top of the first inning, to be honest.
Well, I got to tell you, text messages, emails, snail mail, referencing vehicles I haven't owned for years. This goes on and on. The wrong message at the wrong time, and it's like nobody's paying attention to anything. This is the kind of stuff that's probably a huge opportunity for automotive. And with that, with what Charity said, what about now you're talking about the DMS, the CRM. What about the 6 or 7 different vendors they have that have some semblance, fractional, maybe AI or automated, programming or whatever? Where does that data go, Tim?
Well, my argument is that you're going to want to bring it all into the same place, right? I mean, it exists in that origin system, which you just merchandised, right? You were talking about the point systems, right? Software as a service.
Yeah.
That the dealers invested in over time to handle a certain operation or task, or just a certain business process. That's natural. We all did it. Every industry did it, right? So the big opportunity is to make sure that you're at least doing an export, right, of data from that origin system and taking it somewhere else where machine learning and probably AI will help you to analyze it and make more sense of it against other data that's associated with the same person, the same car, the same cohort, right? That's where we get into this correlational side of things. I mean, in fact, I was talked to Kaylee Filio about the parts side of things itself not too long ago, and we talked about this is no different than when you open the Netflix app on your phone, on your television, and it has a little bar of thumbnail shows for you to watch, and it says, because you watched.
I love it. Yeah.
Yeah. Because you watch Stranger Things, here are 5 other shows you'd probably be interested in, right?
I love it.
It's not because it's sci-fi. It's because they've got 1 million people that they modeled that watch Stranger Things, and these are the top 5 things that they seem to be watching the most. We'll put them in front of you, right? That's the opportunity that dealers have, bringing the signals that come from the same customer you sold a car to that are starting to pop up in FixedOPS, or the fact that they identify with this VIN, which can be categorically, year or year range, make, model, trim, and we've got several thousand people that share that behaviorally, if we want to call it that, as an identifier. And here's what a good number of them are doing. Maybe not a majority, but a good chunk of them are doing this. How can we get the rest of them to do the same thing?
That's the future. It is the future, because I roll out of a 30,000 mile service, and 2 days later I get an email about my first service. Are you kidding me? What the hell is going on out there? But this is the kind of stuff we're talking about that is going to be transformative in our industry.
Let me guess, at this very moment, another vendor is walking up to your lot with something shiny to sell. before you head back and hide in your office, let me take a minute to tell you about my friend Dawn Pelham and my friends over at Global Dealer Solutions. They exist to help you find solutions to problems, some of which you might not even know you have. Best of all, they can manage as many products and services as needed for you, helping cut down on multiple vendor visits and distractions. And if you need anything, you have one number to call or text for the response all dealers like to hear. On it, GDS understands that successful dealerships require more than a set it and forget it mentality. And they'll be with you every step of the way, from setup, implementation, training, and support. And if necessary, they'll even cancel non-performing products for you. No pushback, no arguments, just a solutioneer executing course corrections as needed. Check out gdsdealers.com to learn the difference and set up a time to meet. Let's see if they're a good fit for you.
It's personalization, right? I mean, this is individualization. This is, I used to, this has been going on for a while. I tell people I'm a recovering mobile strategist. 14 years ago, 14 to 11 years ago, that's what my job was mobile strategy. And I used to lead off in explaining mobile with my first slide being an old grainy black and white picture of some women standing in a butcher shop. And I used to say, this is how life used to be, right? Is that when one of these women would walk in the butcher knew her name, knew her favorite cuts of meat, and knew what school her kids were in and what activities, what church they go to, all of that.
Yep.
Butcher had it all right here, right? He knew all of it. And the trust was so much that when he wrapped it up in butcher paper and handed the cuts of meat to her, he says, don't worry about it, we'll put it on your tab. She didn't have to pay him right then.
Man.
The trust, the confidence, and the personalization, right? Just back up to the personalization. That's what CDPs portend to do. And unfortunately, a lot of them are just there to help you transactionally make media work better. But honestly, the bigger opportunity is to bring back more of that substantive understanding and empathy with customers, so you have more relevant and meaningful exchanges with them, right? It's not just that you drive that car and it's time for to your point, that 30,000 mile checkup. And here's what a 30,000 mile checkup is. And here we have a bay open on Thursday at 1 o'clock. Can you come in then? If you can't do it then, I'm sorry, it'll be 2 Thursdays from now at 2 o'clock, It's so broken. Every bit of that is broken, if people don't see the connection between the two, if you don't understand a little bit about what your customers' needs are, and if you don't cater to that or deliver on that, this is why, in what I just described, everybody's going to go to the mom and pop installer, Jiffy Lube, AutoZone, somewhere else,
which they already are,
which they've already done, right? Because the dealer stopped giving a hoot about caring about the relationship. Yeah.
Your butcher analogy, let me tell you what I love about it. My camera keeps fading in and out. It's all about the relationship. It's really that simple. It's all about the relationship, understanding. And so I would pay more. You couldn't get me to go to another butcher shop. It ain't going to happen. I'm going right here. He knows my name. He knows what cuts I like. He knows what day of the week I come in. He got this fresh, order in today, et cetera, et cetera. And I feel all warm and fuzzy and good. And I feel like, man, I got my back. And then Foremost delivers my milk and knows exactly what I like to my front door, like it used to happen. Doesn't happen anymore. And I digress a little bit. Charity.
Well, speaking of being at the top of the first inning right now in automotive, we've talked about AI quite a bit on this podcast over the last year, and we get a lot of pushback. We hear a lot of, it'll replace our job sort of talk. And in some cases that might be true, but maybe you can shine some light on how the automotive industry might expect to see changes based on adapting and adopting AI.
Well, we'll start off by talking about numbers, right? Selling cars, in terms of how the various fiefdom of operations. I got variable ops, I got fixed ops, I got F&I ops, I've got I've got I got my porter services, I've got cost centers, I've got operations, right? All of that's measured with numbers, right? We've got time, cost, value of transaction. We have cost of transaction as well, right? And the beautiful thing about that is that those are just numbers. So when you talk to a dealer, you start off by asking them questions about what kind of dashboards or reports do you use and what types of decisions are you making with those reports and dashboards.
Mm-hmm.
You back into that sometimes by saying, let's take a look at your calendar. How many meetings do you have on your calendar, or how many blocks of time on your calendar do you have, or better yet, does your internet sales director have, for instance? That's a great place to start.
Mm-hmm.
To put the time to the side to generate a report, or to take data from one system and dashboard information from another, put them in a spreadsheet, build a pivot table. I mean, there are a lot of humans, there are a lot of good men and women who are in internet sales who've been doing this manually, right? But they have to put time against to do that. It's all numbers. And the reason that makes the difference is numbers are so easy for machines to manipulate and analyze. So the fascinating thing about AI is, I'm going to talk to the points that you put out there, Charity, is first and foremost, numbers are easy. We can start to look at that calendar and say, instead of you taking 3 hours out of your week to do this, how about you take 30 minutes? And we set it up with the data correlated and structured in a way that it learns. And the more you do it, the first couple of times you'll spend a little time doing it, but after that, it can automatically start to do it and just drop it in your inbox. And then you can forward it to the GSM, or you can forward it to the dealer principal, or whoever you're reporting to. How do we get you those hours back? And what that'll dovetail into, Charity, is this notion that AI is going to replace people. No, it's going to replace some human tasks. And if I'm thinking about dealers, there's especially those that have been able to put a handle on churn. They've got a few gray hairs on the sales floor, and the gray hairs on the sales floor are full of institutional and tribal knowledge. We don't need to think that they're about to retire soon, or they're not selling 15 cars a month anymore. They're only selling 9, and maybe it's time to put them to pasture, right? I mean, that's the way entrepreneurs think. You have to, but you need to think about, hey, how do I leverage what this person knows institutionally?
Yeah.
Unique about my dealership, and how do I foster that? And how do I get them to pass that knowledge on to others, while also bringing AI in for some automation that allows humans to do human things, which is strategic, creative thinking, planning. And what I'm asking for here is knowledge transfer, is to say that how are people in the dealer sharing more with each other about how they do their jobs and what their ideas are to do things better, faster, different, or just a big idea on some customers we're not talking to that maybe we should talk to. Because I had 2 come in today that did this, and I'm thinking there's got to be a bunch more of them. We need humans to be able to wonder like that. AI is not going to do that. I mean, it will eventually do some of that, but we need to think about AI giving us the ability to have more throughput, more volume of sales, widening our margins, because we'll be able to control our costs instead of hiring more people to manage software like we had to do before. We were just buying software as a service.
Right.
AI is here just to say that our business is going to increase, our margins can increase, and our headcount stays flat. And we'll do everything we can to nurture these people, because guess what? They know our business. They know our customers.
Yep.
Product. We have to nurture that and allow people to do things that are more natural for humans to do, while technology does what it was supposed to do all along. That's
the human side of AI, isn't it?
I think it is. I think it's the thing that, unfortunately, we probably have 2 out of 3 of those shows that get very demo-y, right? They get very, which again is humans being humans.
Sure.
When it comes to technology.
Right.
Let me tell you about functions. Let me tell you about, let me tell you how the dashboard looks. Let me tell you about what's automated, right? I don't want to hear that. I want to hear stories about how humans got 5 hours back in the week, and here's what they do now. They're selling aftermarket parts. They're They're driving fixed ops revenue through a channel through revenue diversification that they
That's
never
what they need to
could.
hear, because it's solving the pain points.
It solves the pain points, and it drives the one thing that cures everything, and that's revenue, right?
So I used to have a CRM company, and I don't know if the statistics are still the same today. Of course, the repeat referral and retention numbers seem to be pretty consistent, or the sales numbers since I started selling in 1985 are pretty consistent.
Yeah.
But 2% of a database every day is buying a new or used vehicle from somebody somewhere, and that's a gold mine. It's a gold mine. And with turnover, and people sometimes wonder, when you said something a minute ago, it made me reflect that one of my children is 8 years at the same dealership, and he doesn't listen to me anymore because he's got it all figured out on how to sell cars. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But he used to tap on me for this dog. He said, "Dad, how did you learn all that? 40 years in the business." That's how it's just a machine can't do that.
Yeah. No, and you have a compounding factor right now too, with the migration trends right now in the United States too. Just if you give a nod to that, Russell, you and I live in Texas. There's a lot of people that live in Texas now that didn't live here 3, 5, 7 years ago.
Oh
right?
man, yeah, lots.
And therefore, it's different than up where you live. You can go every 7 houses and find someone who's bought a car from Sewell, right? You can.
Yep.
And we know what they do right, which they didn't need technology to do it, but now they're leveraging technology to do it everywhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
I live in Austin, and with technology and new emerging businesses, not that are digital for sure, but maybe they're not technology companies, right? That have created the most jobs here, that have brought people in from all around the country, right? Not just California, the way everybody likes to kick on Austin.
Right.
They're not all coming from California, but they're coming from everywhere. And these are people that, that are looking to find a relationship. So you have people that were born and raised in Austin who will tell you that they get their cars only from Covert, right? That they know the Coverts. They went to school with Covert kids, right? I mean, you hear that, but and that's a long way of me saying Austin is still a tiny town. I mean, it's big enough, the 11th largest city in the country, but it still has that small town feel where you don't have to go far to hear some of those stories with people who grew up here. But everybody else are more than the 2%. They're looking for a way to build a relationship. They're looking for somebody that they can buy a car from once, and then they can trust them enough to come back to them for whatever their next need is. So it is got to be more than 2% today, I got to think, because I think dealers would hear me say that and say, exactly, that's why I've got all kinds of ways to capture intent data from cars.com or AutoTrader before it hits my website, and be able to frame somebody who's got an intent to buy. I get it. But what that person's looking for is somebody they can trust, because they're about to spend $60,000, $70,000 with you, right? I mean, that befuddles me, that dealers don't understand that this is just behind buying the house, right? Just behind their house payment. This is the thing that is, at the end of the day, the most painful thing to do, to make a payment and insurance and gas and parking on a depreciating asset. They trust you enough to do that. You talked them into doing this. You talked them into doing it. Yeah.
So what I think I heard you say, based upon charities, okay, it still boils down to less jobs are going to go away than most people think, because there's you can say it's all about price, and people use that as deflection or defense mechanism, and it is not. Okay. If they like you, trust you, they believe you, they're going to buy from you. What does that mean? It means there's a relationship. It means there's a human involved. In the AI, you'll be saddled up with that to assist in eliminating time constraints, where you can spend better and more quality time with those people. Is that kind of what I hear you saying too?
I absolutely think so. I mean, I think this is, I think your team between themselves alone, right? When I was a mobile strategist, again, I would speak at digital marketing conferences, and people would say, "How do we get started?" And I say, "Well, who runs email and social media?" And they would, the whole room would raise their hand. And I would say, well, which of you handled direct mail? And all but like 5 hands would still be up, right? And those 5 hands, I'm sorry, not all but 5, all but 5 hands would go down. Those 5 hands that were still standing up. I said, so you guys run direct mail? I said, the most analytical person in the business is the direct mail person. Back then, that was the truth, right? And I said, why don't you who are running email and looking at open rates have a cup of coffee just once a week with the person who's running direct mail? That's a very figurative way for me to say the writ large opportunity as AI starts to come in and automate tasks and operations is to really key on and nurture human wanderlust, human discovery, human ideation, right? And encourage it in terms of not just team building exercises, happy hours, and ropes courses, but how do we really get the team to huddle up? That's what software teams do. Every morning, I've got software developers and data engineers that work for me, and there's every single day of the week there's a 15-minute huddle, and they talk about projects, but they also talk interpersonally about how they're doing their jobs different because of AI. They're all saying, here's what I did differently yesterday, right? And then a week later, my chief operating officer is coming in and he says, hey, 2 weeks ago, somebody started, writing code with ChatGPT for this particular thing. And now they're all doing it. And we've shaved 15 minutes off of a job by doing it, right? I mean, that's where we are right now. And I think, car dealers, because they're a pillar of the community, there's a great story to tell about how they're great neighbors, how they support nonprofits, how they're involved, and they're just as much a friend as they are.
Yeah. They're very involved in community and
right?
stuff like that. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, I looked at the clock and I thought, oh, wow, we've been on AI for a while. So I'm going to kind of speed you through the next topic and see what you think. So this might be a slightly personal question from me. I get tired of seeing bad data. Duplication, transformation errors, over aggregation, intentional or unintentional manipulation, vanity metrics, and I can go on and on. Why is clean data important, and how do we better control our data?
Wow, what a great question.
Yeah, no, I mean, clean data is important just for operations, just so we don't have people on the team that feel the way you feel, that are frustrated by fuzzy metrics, inaccurate analytics, and or duplicates, right, or redundancy. This is especially troubling as you start to have, just take a handful of systems. You got 5 different systems that are looking at different aspects of marketing, media, customer behavior, for instance. Each of those vendors is pushing AI, to you to automate things. And guess what? The analytics are going to conflict with each other. That's a challenge, right? So the opportunity that you have with tried and proven machine learning to basically go and look at the association, the affiliation, the correlation of disparate data. Some people call it repatriation of data, right? Is that you have the Bob and the Robert example I gave you earlier, right? Is this person and their vehicle have got bits of information that they've left in multiple systems, and now because AI and because other forms of analytics are at work in those systems, we're seeing different stories about this person or that vehicle. So this is where having all those systems connected to one single source, right? A single source of truth that is employing first and foremost the opportunity to re-schema or rename the data as it's coming in. So it's unique to the dealer or the business in this situation. It's not a schema or it's not a naming convention that was dictated by Apple or Microsoft or Samsung. That's the short story on what we're talking about here. Is it now becomes the dealer's data, and with that, it's also being reconciled through entity resolution, identity resolution, object resolution, meaning data bits, names, email addresses, IP addresses, MAC addresses, Wi-Fi IP addresses is on top of the device IP address and the browser IP address. They're all these different things that are scattered everywhere in different systems. You bring it all together and you're able to associate it all with that one person. And guess what? Everybody else who shares the same behavior attributes, right? And the way that should work in a read and write, and this is the long last mile, and I'll agree with your frustration on a DMS here, Russell, is that we have to be able, after we clean the data up, right? After we go through this process of very finite resolution.
Indeed.
And it's clean structured data now. If we know people are still relying on the DMS, we need to be able to write back to the DMS so they see the accurate information there as well. We're not trying to replace the DMS. We're just trying to say that make sure the information in it is correct, right?
Basically sync everything.
That's right. It's Sue Johnson bought her car 4 years ago and she came in for a 50,000 mile checkup and her name is now Susan Smith. And, in F&I, she's Susan Johnson at the tech desk or the parts desk. Her name's now Susan Johnson. Banks have to do this too, right? People get married, people get divorced, people pass away. I mean, there's all kinds of things that happen with humans and their data is left behind.
Man,
we got to make sure we have survivorship of the most current data to make sure that exists everywhere that is operational and needs to be there for continuity.
I gotta go ahead, Sherry.
Sorry, Russell.
I understand you are, and it's like, man, this time is flying by. But here's one of the things, because we're not done yet. But what I love about visiting with Tim and the room that he's in once a week, most of the time, and what I met in person is that it could be a little scary. And it's become less scary to me over the last year and a half that I've gotten to listen to him and know him and other people as well. And I'm learning a little bit. And with what I've learned, spending 15 or 20 minutes a day listening to and learning as much as I probably know 95% more than the population does worldwide, because nobody's paying attention. It is time to pay attention to this stuff, because it is going to be a part of people's lives, whether they realize it or not. And it probably already is, and you don't even know it, particularly if you got an EV or you got a smartphone, or, I mean, your data's there and something's happened with it. All of you know what I'm talking about right now. So how did you get to automotive? Because you were, where are you? How did you get here?
So, I mean, we over my years professionally, I've worked in automotive. I've had OEMs as clients and I've had dealers as clients. And over the last 18 months, we joined the Star Standard Alliance, and that gives us some exposure to OEMs, big tech companies that are trying to do things with them and now want to bring that to large dealer groups first, and then all dealers, right? I mean, we're starting to be exposed to that. These are companies we were doing work with in retail and banking and financial services, but financial services, credit unions, and even community banks. There's a huge automotive component to how those organizations operate. So you just start to look at, you come in from the peripheral and you start to understand things. Our second client, our first client was GE. Our second client was Paragon Motors in Queens, New York. And it was Brian Benstock, who is beyond early adopter. He's just someone who shows up every day with force to, have everyone aligned and have everyone understand what the mission is and to grow them in that capacity. And in the capacity we worked with him, we got exposed to, actually, to be quite honest, a lot of things that didn't have anything to do with data at the time, but
that's right,
had a lot to do with systems and process and customer experience, right? Is what we really focused on in the capacity we were engaged there. So through that, and then over time, starting to invest a little bit more, we've had a chance to work with some other dealers to configure or to optimize their CDP. The thing about CDPs is that data starts to mature over time. The way the machine learning works in them, your data starts to get mature, which makes your accuracy and your analysis and your insights much more accurate, right? The more the machine learning and the more you're querying data, the more you're building audiences, the more you're starting to facilitate certain marketing tasks or operations, you're starting to train that machine learning, right? You're starting to do that. And as you're collecting more data all the time, back to Bob, his record gets richer, right? The more he does with you, the more he clicks on things and opens things, but buys from you, the richer his record gets. And maybe he bought another vehicle from you. He's got more depth to his record, right? It's maturing. So we've had the opportunity to help some dealers understand how they can, iterate and optimize what they're doing at that phase or that stage in their journey. And today we're talking to, I just saw the number today. We've got 22 active conversations with dealers, smallest being 5 or 6 rooftops, largest having more than 100 rooftops, who are looking at the things we're talking about here.
They know it's the future.
Cleaning up the data and getting ready for AI. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So this is like really off the cuff. So for those of you who know Tim and listen to him and stuff like that, and here's just an idea I thought of. You know how you see these pigeons wherever you go, you see pigeons, but do you ever see a baby pigeon? You don't really ever see baby. They're just like all of a sudden, are they born and they're full size? Don't really know. So my question, Tim, were you born were you born this way? I mean, where did you come from? I mean, people want to know, where did Tim Hayden come from?
Well, my mom, she lived in Central Park, and then she flew to Texas, and no, I'm not a pigeon, but that could have gone either way. No,
yes, it could have.
I was sticking with pigeons. I was sticking with birds.
Oh, I see. Okay,
yeah,
all right.
Yeah. They got cold one winter. She flew south, and she ended up down here, and that's where she met my dad, who was a South Texas pigeon. And anyway, just have always been fascinated with correlation and causal relationships, right? You want to know why things are what they are. You can unpack probably the top 10 hottest political conversations right now, and the headlines don't have anything to do with what's actually causing the thing people are talking about, right? There's more to it. We won't go there, but it's the big opportunity that technology in the last decade, more than anything else. Before that, I just was extremely curious from a consumer behavior standpoint. I was on the front end of the website revolution. The early 2000s, the 2000 aughts, and then as we got later in that decade, 2007, 2008 is when the iPhone showed up. I at the time I had an experiential shop. I was activating sponsorships for Dell and AMD, IBM, a couple other companies. Bacardi was a big client, and we were doing sports and entertainment and event production type things with their brands, and we were doing that in that time frame when the mobile phone showed up, and we were like, because Friendster and YouTube were the two most popular social networks at the time.
Yeah,
and then the phone shows up, and I was like, ooh, this is going to change things, because people will have an artifact from being at the event now. And, back then we were seeing 2 or 3 days later, people were sharing photos and little grainy videos to YouTube from their flip phones, and then their first generation iPhones or Motorola Droids, right?
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
They're texting, 1, 2, 3 for a C. And so
we didn't call it data then. The
right.
short of that, Russell, is we didn't call it data then, but we started to just understand we were getting intelligence. We were getting information from different places and different day parts or periods of time that all related back to the brand.
Yep.
The agency were like, hey, let's show you your investment in that event actually has this halo effect of how people are talking about you online now after they were there for the thing, right? So we didn't call it data, but it was back then correlation. It was back then, we didn't call it that either. But we were starting to say, what is the why, the how, and the what that's happening because of what we produced. And as that's manifested over time, especially as I said in the last decade, we started to understand how custom Python scripts and machine learning can help us deal with even more data than that now coming at us in real time to make sense of it, and better than that, make accurate decisions.
Who would have known that I think I had. You had Moto Razor. I think I had a Palm Pilot, BlackBerry, 2006. Everybody remembers those phones, or most people do. Now, this is. I'm an Android guy, but I'm going to say this is an iPhone, and you have this in your hand in 2006, and you're trying to tell everybody when this releases in 2007 how it's going to be the start of a major revolutionize the entire world. You would have thought you're full of crap. You don't know what you're talking about. Is that what we're encountering again right now with AI, CDP, and all this kind of stuff?
It's not different. I mean, you said BlackBerry. I mean, it depends on what audience I'm in front of, but you know, I do this with clients all the time, and I say, hey, do you all remember the first time you got your BlackBerry? You remember the first time you sent an email at lunch? I mean, do you remember that? I mean,
yeah.
Or if your Palm Pilot and you had a keyboard connected to it, you could actually, while you're on the airplane, you could sync your Palm Pilot with your email and then answer all your emails and then resync your Palm Pilot back to your computer when you landed.
Yeah.
And all your emails would be sent, right? I mean, those kinds of things, right? I mean, we've done this before in waves. This is a third or fourth wave of major industrial transformation that is happening right now. And we're recording this right now when we are in a 30-day period where OpenAI and Google and Anthropic and Microsoft and Amazon, AWS have all come out with, I would say, cataclysmic new products that we may talk about a little bit right now. About, you're going to see people on LinkedIn, right? Especially freelancers. They're going to say, look what I did today, right? And this is some prompt engineering here and an AI agent there, and I made this happen today. And I've got table reservations in Paris in 2 nights now, and I didn't have to call anybody. You know, that kind of thing is cool, sure, and we need people to tinker. But the thing that's happening from the big hyperscaler platforms that I just listed off right now is going to drastically change consumer behavior and how business is conducted throughout 2025. So at the end of the day, a lot of the pieces that we've laid out there on this show are about dealers taking control of their future. You are either going to be in the same situations you were the last 15 years, where 60-70% of your spend went to Meta and Alphabet, right? 60-70% of your investment went to 2 companies, Facebook and Google, respectively, to go through those intermediaries, easier for me to say, to go fish where the fish are, is what you thought you were doing. And what you were doing is forfeiting all your data to these companies. And so was the customer. And we all did it, right? We were all complicit in this crime.
Yes, we were.
We gave all our intelligence to
still
these
are.
We're still doing it, right? But there's a fantastic opportunity here with AI that you control. This is where open source, fascinating that Meta, and Facebook violated our privacy for the better part of 15 years. And now they're the ones that are giving away now 650 million downloads of llama models. What does that mean? These are open source models. These are not people going and putting in a username and password at OpenAI to get ChatGPT to do something. These are people that are putting in a secure environment of language model to talk to their data. And that's what this is going to be. You're going to tell the companies that went the road of owning it and being bespoke, being customized and bending data and AI for their business operations, their employees and their customers. They'll be the ones at the end of 2025 and in 2026 who, in the car business, will say, we're no longer selling 10 cars per month per person on the floor, right?
Yeah.
Rep on the floor, but we're now doing 15, and we're now closed on Sunday. We're now or something, right?
Yeah.
This is what the opportunity is for you to take control of your data, which is intelligence, which are your tea leaves, to tell you what you need to do next and what you need to do to be future ready and what you need to do to grow your business. Not what somebody who's going to tell you that Google search will do automatically for you. You need to capitalize on that, but you don't need to put all your eggs in that basket. You need to look at growth through retention, as much as you would as you did the last 2 decades, which was all through just general
Yeah.
acquisition. Yeah.
Yeah. If you don't control your data, somebody else will. I'm going to ask you this, and Charity's got a question here because we are out of time. If we ask you to come back on, would you consider coming back on?
I would in a heartbeat.
Okay.
I would, in a heartbeat. Yeah. No, I think this is with NADA coming up, right? This is
that's what we're gonna talk about right now. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
So, Charity, question?
Yeah, well, I'll just ask you one more since we're out of time. What would you like our audience to walk away with today? Is there anything that we missed?
No, I think I would say everybody needs to invest in themselves to be digitally literate, right? To take the time to understand what's going on, to understand cybersecurity, understand what you as a human can do to protect yourself, and better yet, all the systems and the information that you have access to. Your CTO, if you have one, if you have a managed service provider that comes in as your IT admin, they're going to appreciate that you're doing that. Your boss, the dealer principal, is going to appreciate that you're doing that. So, invest in educating yourself. LinkedIn has great courses that are free. YouTube is a treasure trove of people who are telling stories about how they're doing things, how the experimentation that's out there right now. I think there's a fascinating opportunity to improve your literacy, which in turn will improve your proficiency with dealing with emerging technology or new technology. That's important. And then lastly is, ask people to share with you when you're talking to software vendors. If they tell you they have AI, ask them what the base model is. If they're telling you if they're telling you it's ChatGPT, if they're telling you it's OpenAI, guess what? You can't custom configure it. You can't train that on your data. And as I said before, you can't control it, right? You're into the old Twitter fail whale type
Very true
situation that I saw twice on LinkedIn this week, where people were posting screenshots of saying that ChatGPT is not available right now. You can't have those single points of failure, right? We talked about DMSs earlier. Coin-operated, browser-operated AI is the same thing. So start to look at how your vendors are bringing you custom configurable AI, and when they talk AI, ask them if it can train on your data. Can it become brand-centric, customer-centric to your business, or are they just trying to sell it to you as a best practice, something they did for the 15 people they talked to before you? There's a difference. Big difference. You want the former is what you want.
Yep, absolutely. Tell us about NADA, because that's coming up. Tell us what you're going to be doing, who you're going to be talking to. Because this is going to air right before that. Is that right, Charity? Right before the end? Yeah. So this is going to air. It's going to be all over the place, and we want to drive as many people as we can because they need to hear. They need to hear Tim. Tell us about NADA.
Russell, I appreciate you. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. I mean, no, I'm excited. I'm going to be the opening keynote for the American Truck Dealer Show, which is a day or 2 days before NADA officially opens. ATD is a NADA organization.
Yes.
So I'll be the opening keynote there. It'll be a little different talk because truck dealers have a little different way of operating than especially when we're talking about long haul, long haul trucks.
Yeah.
I'll be speaking there. I'll be on the NADA live stage on Saturday afternoon, talking about these things. I've got a 20-minute slot there. And then I'm going to be on the floor. I'm going to be, the V20 group that we belong to, with Dave Sponicky, the Stream Company's Full Throttle AI, a bunch of fantastic folks we get in our V20 group. We partner with a bunch of people outside the V20 group, but our V20 group itself, we'll have some activities and some events that we're doing as well, because that's what NADA is all about. And really is meeting new people and
networking
and walking away with new ideas and new relationships. So we're going to be embroiled in all that. There's be a couple of times I'll be on stages, and I appreciate it, and I hope to see you there.
Absolutely. Charity, any final thoughts before I end this?
No, that's it.
Okay, so thank you very much. Listen, when this comes out, you need to pay attention to it. You need to like him, love him, share him, make comments, reach out to him, whatever. Find the Clubhouse before he's just so whatever. And for those of you that have a question about whether or not he is like a pigeon, he actually grew up somewhere and he's a real person. You just didn't see Tim, and this has been all he is. Okay, he's a real human being. No AI, no robotics involved whatsoever. Tim Hayden, CEO of BrainTrust Partners. Thank you so much. Charity, Patrick, thank you for all that you do as well. And thank all of you for supporting our WTF podcast. Thanks again, Tim.
Thanks, Tim.
Thank you. Thanks, y'all.
Yeah.